got quiet. I am really happy. We're starting just a few minutes early because I have a vote, but thankfully it's only one vote, so I will have to run out. But I want to just get us started, and first and foremost, I want to thank everyone for being here on a nice, bright, and somewhat warmer day than it is in Pennsylvania. But we're proud to come together, as we have over many years now, and in this year to honor Joanne Epps, who needs no introduction, but wow, has she done a lot. Joanne, there's no one sitting next to you. I'm supposed to sit there, but I'm running out the door, so I'll come and see you. Don't worry about it. But we're grateful, Joanne, that you're here, that you're willing to allow us to share some time with you and to walk through a part of your life, and also to have this distinguished panel discuss a broader issues that relate to the work that you've done and also the work that all of us can do together. I came very close to violating Senate rules by referring to the gallery, although I didn't technically break the rule, but I'm going to check with the guys over there. But it was so nice to have so many people in the gallery. Sometimes when you're speaking, there's no one there. So you made me feel like I had some friends speaking in the Senate. I know that we have a number of distinguished guests with us today, and I'll just go through several. And I'm reading a prepared list. I'm not positive because I haven't seen everyone yet, but I'm told in terms of public officials, elected officials, State Representative Margot Davidson. Margot? Here? Not here. Okay. Well, if she's coming in, we'll acknowledge her later. And Representative Curtis Thomas from the 181st. Curtis, great to be with you. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time. I'm sorry. He's on his way. It's a slow train. I know that Dr. Theobald will be speaking maybe when I'm not here, but Doctor, we want to thank you for being with us today and bringing your Temple team on a day like today. We're grateful for your presence. Judge Beetlestone, Wendy, I know, is here in the back. Wendy, thanks so much. We're grateful she's with us, and even more grateful that she started as a judge. We're happy about that. And Stephen Sandy Scheller, I know that those of you who were listening to the remarks today, the Scheller Family Foundation, which was recently created at Temple Law School and the formal name, Stephen and Sandra Scheller Center for Social Justice at the law school. We're grateful you're here with us in the first row. I wanted to provide some background for some of you. This will be redundant, for others for the first time about this program. We started, as I said in the remarks, in 2007, and every year we've commemorated Black History Month in this way by having a program. We set aside this day of tribute to honor an individual who has made considerable contributions to society and the African American community in Pennsylvania, and in many cases, in almost every case, well beyond Pennsylvania, and that certainly applies in the case of Dean Epps, beyond Pennsylvania. This is our 9th, and just to review, and I know the Dean might have seen this list and others might have seen this list, but this is the list of prior award winners. Reverend Leon Sullivan, Judge Leon Higginbotham, former U.S. Secretary of Transportation Bill Coleman, former Pennsylvania Secretary of the Commonwealth C. Dolores Tucker, CEO and President of the Philadelphia Tribune Bob Bogle, and just I guess now 2-3 years ago now, former Congressman Bill Gray, who then passed away not too long ago, just in the summer of 13, I guess. And it's hard to believe that Bill is gone, but we were so happy that day to have him with us. And then just 2 years ago now, Manchester Buildwell Corporation Bill Strickland, who's known not only in our state but around the country for his work with young people and his work with building skills for tomorrow. Founder and chairman of PRWT Services Incorporated, Willie Johnson, was our honoree last year. We have internships that flow from this program. We have 2 paid internships for economically disadvantaged college students from Pennsylvania. These internships were established in honor of the first 2 recipients of the tribute, Leon Sullivan One internship is open to all Pennsylvania college students, and also the Leon Higginbotham internship is open to Pennsylvania students enrolled in law school or planning on attending law school. Our former Sullivan and Higginbotham interns have become law school students and attorneys, teachers, consultants, legislative counsels, business owners, and nonprofit directors. So it's a distinguished group of now former interns. While they have all taken different paths in life, they all are an inspiration to each of us and give us hope for the next generation of leaders. I'd like to note that one of our Leon H. Sullivan interns is now a full-time staff member in our office, Shavania Corbin Johnson. Where's Shavania? Right at the doorway there and working on this event today. Shavania, thank you for being with us and for helping us get organized and working to make today a success. Given their professional lives that are very busy, only a few others are here and able to join us today. I'm told that we might have as many as 5, and if our former interns could stand if you're here. 1, 2, okay, 3. We're grateful that you're with us today, and I'll have a chance to say hello personally in a couple of minutes. Today we're joined by another great moderator for this symposium, Art Fennell, and I'll do a little bit of background on Art in a moment, but also want to say how proud we are to have the other members of the panel, Crystal Brown, Roberta Bobby Liebenberg, the Honorable Ted McKee, Judge of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, Chief Judge, and Shelley Smith, all of whom will discuss the life and work of Joanne Epps, the Dean of Temple Law School, and her contributions to advancing opportunities for women and for African American women through education and law. And Art will go through the bios of our panelists when I turn over the microphone to him. And I do want to thank Art for taking this on. Art is best known for the Art Fennell Reports, and for which he's won an Emmy for outstanding work in the Mid-Atlantic region. Prior to this program on Comcast NBC Universal in Philadelphia, Art was the principal anchor and managing editor for CN8 News on the Comcast network. And I noticed a number of other things in Art's bio that he wouldn't highlight, but I will, because he doesn't get a chance to introduce himself. So I want to add a little bit to the bio. Art was a recipient of the Journalists of the Year Award for his work in the Philadelphia region, and I mentioned the Emmy Award for Outstanding News Anchor in the Mid-Atlantic region. He received an Emmy for his documentary Terror in Tulsa, History Uncovered, which tells the story of the Black Wall Street in Tulsa. He also received an Associated Press Award for his documentary on Hurricane Katrina entitled Hope and Recovery After the Storm. And he's been honored by the National Association of Black Journalists for his documentaries Murder in Memphis, The Assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and Who Killed Malcolm X, and Camden, The Rising Stories from the People. So Art, we're grateful you're here. I'm going to pass the microphone to you. The next time I'll be standing here is, I don't know, maybe 90 minutes from now, but I will vote. I'll come back and be able to listen to the panel. But Art, thanks very much for getting us started today.
Thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, let me just say what an honor it is, and I'm sure you're feeling the exact same way, to be here in these hallowed halls, this place of democracy for our country that we see every day in the news and the comings and goings of our lawmakers, and to be able to be here. For some of you who've been here before, you know that this is always a very, very special place, and this is a privilege. And it's absolutely a privilege for us to be here, all in support of our good dear friend and colleague, Dean Joanne Epps. Would you agree? just a brief comment to Joanne first, and then I'm going to give you the order of what's going to happen here this afternoon. Joanne told me when I was asked to do this, she said, all right, this is going to be terribly embarrassing. And so this is your room, Dean Epps. These are your people who are here with you, people who admire and respect you greatly. And if you would just turn and see all of these faces, you will be like we are, very impressed. Now, Dean Epps, sit down for now, because they've told me to save you for last, okay? And we promise this will not be a roast, but this will be a good opportunity for you to hear some things said about you by people that may not have had an opportunity to tell you some things, and to see the impact that you've had on many, many lives. So here's what's going to happen for this program, and we are not going to be here over our time period. There are some very important people in this room who Senator Casey has already pointed some out. We have a very distinguished panel here. The accolades and the resumes of these people are so impressive that it was hard to shorten it, but I have. Because it could be pages and pages long. So you will get to know who they are, and you'll get to hear from them as we take on the discussion that has been laid out for us today, this Black History Month tribute, the power of dreams, opportunities for women through education and law. So we'll be following along those lines. And then after our discussion, we will have questions and answers, and that's where you get to participate. We look forward to your input, and our panel here will be taking on your questions or your comments, whichever the case may be. Then, as the Senator said, he'll be back for our closing remarks, and then we will commune. We will wine and dine and have a good time in fellowship. We will hear from, before that, obviously, we'll get to hear from our honoree, and then we will depart. So you've all had an opportunity to mingle and to see who's here so far, some very important people. But it is very impressive when you see the turnout that has come just from Temple University alone. I thought Amtrak had reserved the whole train because so many people were coming up. That says a lot, Joanne. It says an awful lot. And at this time, we'd like to call up the person who is at the helm of Temple University, who is here on your behalf as well, to give his remarks, to show his support and his admiration, and to let you know how he feels about this honor today. I speak of no other than the president of Temple University, the 10th president of that prestigious university, as he is now in his 2 years into his tenure, and that is President Neil Theobald. President, would you please come up and give some remarks?
Okay, and I greatly appreciate that. I want to thank Senator Casey and his staff for making this event possible. The Senator has been a very steadfast supporter of Temple University. I have met him, I would say, a half dozen times in my 2 years here. He has been very supportive, very present for us when we needed that, and I really appreciate his efforts on behalf of our students. Well, I also want to thank the participants on the symposium this afternoon. Judge McKee at the end. Wonderful member, besides of all the things he does as a judge, wonderful member of our Board of Trustees, provides great wisdom and great leadership to us at the university. Philadelphia City Solicitor Shelley Smith, who is a graduate of Temple University, and then an OWL, a graduate of our School of Liberal Arts. And Crystal Brown from the Beasley School, a graduate. And Bobby, I don't know that we've ever met. So nice to meet you. I'm sure you will you'll be very eloquent. Oh, there we are, there we are. But I'm sure you will be very eloquent in your comments this afternoon. Someone as a husband often doesn't get thought of. I want to point specifically to Jay over here. Given all the contributions that Joanne makes to the university, I realize how much understanding, how much support you must be providing to her that all of us don't see. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for all you do that make it possible for Joanne to contribute as much as she does to Temple. So thank you, Joe. And as the senator mentioned, I'd like to say I really appreciate the number of members of the Temple family in the back that have made the trip down here to discuss the vital needs in terms of women in education and the law. And you know, no one has done more to create those kinds of opportunities at Temple University than Joanne Epps. List of her accomplishments and her contributions is long and distinguished, and I know you did not come to hear me read lists. So I would rather just say, what's behind all those contributions? I've known Joanne now for about 2.5 years. Starts with, based on intelligence. This is an extremely bright woman. And whenever I need guidance, she is the first person I pick up the phone and call. And she's given me some great guidance over the 2.5 years, but coming from a really very, very smart person. And she's also compassionate. I mean, she cares not just about the university, but she cares about the students. She cares about our community. I can always count on her to look at this more broadly than just, gee, what would be best for Temple University? She has compassion. And she's also, one of the things in higher education we do not specialize in is humility. Well, you are on your own. It is in the tenure ranks, you're up or out is the term. And you are not up as a group, you are up by yourself. So it does not lend itself to humility, but Joanne has always been, in anything I've asked her to do, anything I've observed her doing, it is not about Joanne. It's not all about me. It's all about us and how we make this place better and what she thinks I should do and how she can help me make the place better. So it's intelligence, compassion, humility. Grew up in Cheltenham, and I was glad the senator gave the geography lesson. As a Midwesterner, I do not know the geography well enough, but it was within walking distance of where our School of Art used to be, the Tyler School of Art. She's a member of the Cheltenham Hall of Fame, High School Hall of Fame, along with Benjamin Netanyahu and someone I know better, Reggie Jackson, the baseball player. I'm a baseball fan. Joanne's mother was a secretary at Tyler and retired as the registrar of the Tyler School of Art. Father worked in an industrial equipment company and then later in a bank. And your first job was at the Tyler School of Art in the bookstore. So she has been with Temple many, many years and has had her influence over that time. Unfortunately, even though she had early experience with Temple, she did not choose to attend Temple. She went to another school, excellent school, Trinity College. And I say excellent school because that's also where I went to school. Joanne had laid a standard that I have to say I did not meet while I was there. And then went on to the Yale Law School, as was mentioned, District Attorney's Office, U.S. Attorney, and was recruited, as the senator mentioned, to Temple 30 years ago. What I would just like to close with and talk a little bit about is how I have seen Joanne touch the lives of our students, because that's what universities are all about. I mean, we talk about research, we're about economic development, we're about service, but the reason universities exist is for the students. And so putting them on career paths and to better lives. And so I gathered some comments from students in the school, and several of, I mean, I could stand here again for quite a long time, but two of them really, I thought, showed what I see in Joanne's interaction each day. A student wrote about how she had tragically lost 4 members of her family when she was a first-year law school. And she wrote, and I'll simply quote what I think she states it so well, "Dean Epps provided a listening ear and words of encouragement that were much needed. I am proof that she genuinely cares for each and every student." And I see that as Joanne and I walk around the law school, I see that again and again and again. Second quote I wanted to take from was about the personal touch. It's not just the students as a group. I mean, the nature of universities are these are large places, and you can interact with students or you can interact with individual students. And I think Joanne does such a nice job of that personal touch. And now again, I'm just reading what was written. "After meeting my mom and Aunt Claire once at a Temple football tailgate a few years ago, Dean Epps has asked me how they're doing every time I've seen her since. The dean once attended an event at the Four Seasons where my aunt works, and I got an excited text later that day about how Dean Epps hugged my aunt when she saw her. That is how Dean Epps is. She makes you feel like you and your mom and your Aunt Claire are part of the Temple Law family." I must note that this alumna also said that she saw Joanne recently, and her first response to this occasion was that it was so embarrassing. And that perfectly captures, though, this humility, intelligence of this person. She's happy to do all this work that empowers her students, that makes the school better, but when people are looking for accolades, Joanne is never at the front of the line. In fact, she's all the way in the back of the room. So Senator Casey is not here, but I want to congratulate him of how he convinced you to do this. He has greater success than I do. Obviously, a U.S. senator is much more powerful than a university president. But I have tried to get Joanne to take accolades repeatedly, and it starts, no, there's others, there's others, there's others. So the senator is a very convincing gentleman, clearly, in getting you to take this public honor. And while the level of attention might be uncomfortable, it is so well deserved. I cannot emphasize that enough. Thank you for everything you do for our law students and everyone else at Temple University. You are a pillar upon which the university stands. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Theobald. Again, this program is called The Power of Dreams, Opportunities for Women Through Education and Law. Starting with President Theobald's remarks, also Senator Casey's remarks, there are a couple of words you've heard over and over again, and I'm telling you this now by way of segue to the panel. Words like devoted to public service, diversity, devoted to diversity and integrity, promoting education and legal education. She has been a resource, she's been an advocate, and she reaches out to help people. I'm going to introduce the panel now, and you're going to get to hear more about all of those things, and that will take us into our discussion. I'm going to start from my left, your right, and proceed this way. And the first person I'm going to introduce really speaks exactly to what we just said. We all have people, I'm sure, that we've mentored in life, perhaps that were students. And sometimes they do well, sometimes, well, not so good. This is a case where, wow, did she do good. She is a former student and a mentee of Dean Joanne Epps. Her name is Crystal Brown. She is the Senior Director of the Office of the Cabinet Affairs of the White House. Crystal is a senior director, as I say, for Cabinet Affairs, working with agencies across the administration, such as the Departments of Justice, Education, and Health and Human Services, on a wide range of domestic issues, including the President's My Brother's Keeper initiative. Before coming to the White House, Crystal worked at the Department of Justice, where she served in the office of the Deputy Attorney General as an Associate Deputy Attorney General, focusing on issues relating to criminal justice system reform, environmental law, and antitrust law. At the DOJ, she also served in the Environmental and Natural Resources Division, and as acting Chief of Staff and Counsel to the ENRD, the Environmental and Natural Resources Division, as the Assistant Attorney General. Crystal previously served in the White House as a Deputy Associate Counsel for Presidential Personnel. And prior to that, she was an associate at the law firm of Bryan Cave, where her practice focused on a wide range of commercial litigation and white-collar defense and investigation matters. I'm almost finished here. She also worked on the Obama for America presidential campaign in 2008, and she has also a lot of other accolades to her very distinguished career. Ladies and gentlemen, Crystal Brown. Let me continue to move along. That was the shortened version, by the way. Let me continue to move along. Next, we have Roberta Liebenberg. Everyone calls her Bobby. She is a senior partner at Fine Kaplan and Black in Philadelphia, where she focuses her practice on class actions, antitrust, and complex commercial litigation. She was named as one of the 50 most influential women lawyers in America by the National Law Journal in recognition of her many professional accomplishments and her leading national role in helping women lawyers advance and succeed. She has held countless leadership positions in organizations devoted to creating a level playing field for women lawyers. She twice served as chair of the ABA Commission on Women in the Profession, whose first chair, by the way, was Hillary Clinton. She was the first chair of the ABA Gender Equity Task Force, chairman of the Pennsylvania Bar Association's Commission on Women in the Profession, and co-chair of the Philadelphia Bar Association Women in the Profession Committee. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court appointed her as co-chair of the Interbranch Commission for Gender, Racial, and Ethnic Fairness, and it previously appointed her to the Supreme Court Committee on Racial and Gender Bias in the justice system. And as I said, she has many more accolades, and we could go on and on and on, but your next panelist is Bobby Liebenberg. To my immediate right, we have Shelley Smith. On January 7th, 2008, Shelley R. Smith was appointed by Mayor Michael Nutter to be Philadelphia's city solicitor, the legal representative for the mayor, city council, and all city departments and agencies, and head of the City of Philadelphia Law Department, one of the largest law firms in the city. Ms. Smith, who spent 13 years in the law department in various positions, returned to head the department after 2 brief months as Associate General Counsel for Regulatory Affairs, East at Exelon Corporation. Before joining Exelon, Ms. Smith was of counsel in the Labor, Employment, and Immigration Group at the law firm of Ballard, Spahr, Andrews, and Ingersoll from 2005 to 2007, where her clients included the City of Philadelphia and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as well as many other public and private clients. She is a graduate of J.R. Masterman Junior High School and the Philadelphia High School for Girls. And then she matriculated both at Howard University and at Temple University, from which she received a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice. She received her Juris Doctorate from Villanova University Law School and began her career at the law department after serving as a senior law clerk to the Honorable Robert N.C. Nix, Jr., Chief Justice of Pennsylvania. During her original tenure with the city, she tried over 60 federal cases to verdict and litigated hundreds more, earning in the process a well-deserved reputation as an outstanding trial attorney and becoming equally well-regarded as an effective manager within the department. Ladies and gentlemen, she is Shelley R. Smith. Last but certainly not least, we have the Honorable Theodore McKee, Chief Circuit Judge, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Judge McKee was sworn in as Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals, Third Circuit, on June 20th, 1994, and became Chief Judge on May 4th, 2010. He graduated magna cum laude from Syracuse University College of Law in 1975, where he was inducted into the Order of the Quof. Did I get that right? We practiced that, actually. Quof. I actually like saying it. It's kind of fun, but I digress. He also earned several honors for outstanding academic performance. He began his legal career at a large Philadelphia law firm, but left in 1977 to begin his career in public service. He has since been an assistant U.S. attorney, deputy solicitor to the law department of the city of Philadelphia, and general counsel to the Philadelphia Parking Authority. He was elected to a 10-year term as Judge of Court of Common Pleas for the First Judicial District in Pennsylvania. While a judge of the Court of Common Pleas, Judge McKee chaired the Pennsylvania Sentencing Commission. He was appointed to the Court of Appeals by President Clinton shortly after being retained for a second 10-year term on the Court of Common Pleas. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Theodore Ted McKee. As I said, it's a very distinguished panel, and again, we could go on and on with that. But let's begin this discussion. Judge, since I introduced you last, and because you are the only man here, we did ladies first.
You're excluding yourself from that category?
Well, I'm just a moderator. I don't count. But I'm going to give you the first question, and it's really an opportunity to speak on behalf of your personal friend. As a distinguished member of the judiciary, can you comment on Dean Epps from the realm of legal education, her insights, her innovations, the things she's done, and how she continues to inspire and lead in the examples that we're hearing so much about today?
I think the best example, I would use the term vision. The other terms certainly apply, humility, committed, and contribute, but thanks, these little buttons. But the term that comes to mind to me is vision in response to that question. And the best example of that vision, we've heard reference to it earlier, the Steve and Sandy Scheller for the Center for Social Justice, which is something which was created out of Joanne's vision and the incredible philanthropic commitment and social involvement of the Scheller family, whom we're honored to have here today. And it's a way, I think, of forging the three things that we need to bring together if real advances in the law are going to be made, and that's commitment to policy, to education through a think tank kind of approach to certain kinds of issues that come up, and then finally litigation when litigation becomes necessary. And it affords students an opportunity to get involved from the perspective of legal education in all three aspects of the law, and each of those three things are very, very important. And I think without those underlying foundations, the laws that are ultimately passed really don't mean anything. The Constitution, basically, except for a few amendments which aren't relevant to this point, says the same thing now that it said 100 years ago. But yet, since then, we've had Brown versus Board of Education overturning Plessy versus Ferguson. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act has been up and then down, and we don't know what it'll be when the Supreme Court resolves the case that it has before it. But my point is the laws have really not changed that much. What's changed, I think, is the extent to which certain policies are brought to bear on the law and the extent to which judges and legislators are sensitized to the social dynamic that can take the law where I think it needs to be if it's going to advance the quality of life for so many people. And Joanne's vision, especially through the Scheller Center, is so much a part of that. It's there in other ways, too. It's in making sure that the legal education is there to address the individual and reinforce the dignity of the individual, especially in context with the community, because we should not separate the university be it the law school or the overall university, from the community in which it resides, particularly true in Temple's situation, because the community in which Temple is situated is so much of a metaphor for the society that it's a part of. And I think Joanne's vision and the way she addresses those problems is so fundamental to the mission of the university and to the mission of the law school.
Thank you very much. We all understand, if we are about our salt, that you have to be busy. And there's busy, and then there are people who are really busy. Joanne's one of those people who's really busy. She is always doing something, somewhere, for somebody. This next question is for you, Bobby. And I know that you and Joanne are very close friends and have been for a number of years. I want you to elaborate on that. But she's the dean of the law school. With all of that, that right there would be enough to keep anybody more than busy. But even with that, how is it that she can take on as much civic responsibility as she does, particularly as it concerns opportunities for women in law?
Thank you, Art. First of all, it's such an honor to be here to celebrate Black History Month and the amazing life journey of my dear friend, Joanne Epps. I have known Joanne for over 20 years, and we have worked closely on numerous national, state, and local initiatives to promote diversity and inclusiveness, not only in the legal profession, but in society at large. And ironically, although we are both Philadelphia lawyers, we did not become friends until we were in a leadership position in a national organization, the American Bar Association's section of litigation. And we bonded over a mutual passion for social justice and equality, and I must confess, a mutual passion for shopping and shoes. But Joanne has been on the front lines of ensuring that women law students and women lawyers are afforded the same opportunities to succeed as their male counterparts. As you heard from Senator Casey, her efforts stem from her background and experience as one of only 40 women in her Yale Law School class and only a handful of women of color. And she has often spoken about the fact that when she started her career, she rarely saw women lawyers that looked like her, and she had to navigate her path without any role models. And as a result, she has always felt a special obligation to train, nurture, and bring along succeeding generations of women and minority lawyers. She has mentored and sponsored countless young women, and not only Crystal, but also my daughter, to help them find their place in the profession. And Joanne's support and guidance is more important than ever. Although the legal profession, there have been great strides in diversifying the legal profession, much work remains to be done. And I'm just going to give a few statistics. Although women have been graduating from law school at nearly the same rate as men for over 3 decades, they continue to face a significant gender pay gap, which increases with seniority, and they are grossly underrepresented in positions of real power and influence in all practice settings. In fact, women comprise just 17% of equity partners in law firms throughout this country. And that number has not budged in over 8 years. At this glacial rate of progress, it has been estimated that women will not achieve parity with men in terms of equity partnership until the year 2086. Something to wait for, right? And the statistics with respect to women attorneys of color are even more sobering as they face a unique double bind of both race and gender. And the studies confirm that women attorneys of color have the highest rates of attrition, the lowest compensation, and comprise just 2% of equity partners. They do continue to face significant hurdles with respect to hiring, assignments, business development opportunities, and promotion. And as one of the few, a handful of law school deans who is a woman of color, Joanne has taken many steps to make sure that, again, there are equal opportunities for women. As dean, she has sponsored programs and seminars featuring prominent women and minority lawyers to inspire Temple Law students and to provide them with concrete strategies and tips for success. She has really been at the forefront of making sure that Temple Law students succeed. And it is no coincidence that women at Temple comprise a significant percentage of Temple's top law students, members of its renowned trial advocacy teams, and members of its distinguished journals. And just two other quick points, because Joanne has not only done all of this to advance women in the profession and has left a lasting imprint, but she has also played a really critical role in promoting the rule of law, both in the United States and abroad. As was mentioned, she was instrumental as part of an ABA section of litigation initiative of training lawyers from Rwanda and the Sudan to bring cases before the International Criminal Court. Joanne has spoken about how meaningful this work was because by training these lawyers, she was able to give a voice to those who can't always be heard and to hold those accountable who've committed acts of atrocity against humanity. And with respect to the Scheller Center, I actually feel like I was sort of in there at the beginning. So in the summer of 2012, Joanne joined my family for vacation at the Jersey Shore. And as we sat on the beach, she explained to me this vision of creating a center. And when you think about what she was able to do in such a short time, there are very few people who could have transformed that visionary idea into a reality. The Scheller Center on its website has a quotation from Dr. Martin Luther King, which reads, "Justice denied anywhere diminishes justice everywhere." And I believe that epitomizes Joanne's ethos through her impressive legal career. She has created an enduring legacy that has helped so many others fulfill their dreams and realize their goals. And in her own humble and self-effacing way, she has made this world a better place.
Thank you. Bobby, I just have a very quick follow-up for you, and that is, between the two of you, who's got the most shoes?
I don't know, it'll be tough.
Okay. All right, I'll let you off with that. Shelley, this next question is for you. You and Dean Epps are kindred spirits on a lot of fronts, but from a timely standpoint, you took over the Philadelphia Law Department in 2008. She was elevated to Dean of the Beasley School of Law in 2008. You are both powerful women at the top of your profession. And as such, and as of women of color in a very high-profile, prominent position, can you speak to the pressures, the responsibilities of wearing that hat in what you do, and relaying it also to what Joanne does as well?
Sure, I'll certainly try. I mean, one of the, so Dr. Theobald talked about Joanne's humility, and Joanne and I have now been friends for several years. You pointed out that we ascended to our current positions around the same time, but I don't even remember exactly when I met Joanne. It was many years ago, but a colleague of mine who is a Temple Law alum was much friendlier with Joanne than I, and said to her, "Oh, you know, Shelley Smith's one of my colleagues. I want you to meet her. You know, I think she needs a mentor." And Joanne said, "Mentor? I want to be friends with her," which I thought was cool because it was many years ago. I was a trial attorney, and so Joanne has been someone along the way that I could commiserate with, and she with me about, you know, the similar pressures of having these kinds of positions. And I think that Joanne has, with much grace, upheld her role as dean, first associate dean and now dean at Temple's Law School. She is someone who doesn't look for accolades, but someone who is all about the business of getting done, getting accomplished the goals that she sets. And I think that when you're in a position like this, and certainly as a woman, and I guess as an African American woman, I don't know how to be anything other than that. So I guess that's part of it. But I think that you have to understand that however you think of yourself, people are going to look at you in that space. And they're going to be looking for you to either succeed or fail. And so you're going to be scrutinized, whether you're conscious of it or not, whether you choose to be terribly mindful of it or not. And so I think you have to know, as Joanne certainly does and has demonstrated, that you have a certain integrity that you have to adhere to, that you have to be true to, and you set out wanting to accomplish certain things and represent certain values and set certain examples for the people that follow you, because as Senator Casey quoted Joanne as saying, she didn't see anyone ahead of her who looked like her. And so when that's in your mind and you know that you want to establish that role model for other people, then you consciously want to be somebody that people are going to want to emulate and follow. And I think that you do feel that in this kind of a position, and you want to be true to what you have, to the goals that you've set, and make sure that people understand how you're working towards accomplishing them, so that they can see through you that there is a path to accomplish similar goals of their own, and that there's a method of getting there through hard work and through devotion to your objectives and to dedication to the mission, to seeing in the distance, however distant it may be, the place that you want to get to and the path to get there. Because otherwise, you may not, if you don't see anyone ahead of you, then, as Joanne has said that she had to do, you do have to figure it out for yourself. But if you're Joanne, and once you have figured it out, then you feel a responsibility to show other people how to get there. And I think that that's what she's done so very effectively, is, to show people that, and not by tooting her own horn or promoting herself in any way, because there's plenty of people, God knows, with Twitter and Facebook, and oh my God, there's enough there's enough ways to promote yourself till the end of time. And Joanne is not that person at all. Joanne is a person who is about getting things done and letting the things that she accomplishes speak for the kind of person that she is and the kind of work that she has done and wants to continue to do.
Very well said. Thank you. Crystal, I saved you for last in this first salvo of questions for a reason. I want you to take me back in time, for starters. You're not in the White House. You have not graduated from law school. You are young and impressionable. You're young now. That's not. Yeah. But you're at a point where you're trying to figure it out. You might have a sense of direction where you think you want to go, but you're not crystal clear on how you get there. And you know you need help. At some point in time, you came to make the acquaintance of Joanne Epps. I'm sure that perhaps you were a little intimidated, maybe a bit terrified, maybe not. But I want you to take us back to that period of time in your life and tell us about those early meetings and how that went for you then and how much that has helped to shape the you now.
Sure, thank you. When I think back on law school, especially my first year, I remember seeing Dean Epps. I still call her Dean Epps, although she keeps trying to get me to call her Joanne. But Dean Epps on campus, and what all the other panelists have said, her grace, her poise, her shoes, her reputation among students and her peers, her presence. I would see her around campus and just think, wow, that's someone who I want to really be my role model. And that's someone that if I am able to make her my mentor, or be her mentee and her be my mentor, someone that I don't want to disappoint. And I think I actually was mad when I realized my whole first year I wasn't going to have her as a professor, because I said, now how am I going to be able to meet this amazing person? And my second year, I did get a chance to be in one of her classes, but be careful what you ask for. I was in a criminal procedure class with her, and I remember there was one day she called on me, and I think it went okay, but I remember walking out of the class and thinking, that was okay, but that wasn't good enough for Dean Epps. And I'm going to make sure I am always super overqualified for her classes going forward, and hopefully I was. But I'm going back to my first and second year, talking about my first impressions of Dean Epps, I think really speaks to the person that she is, the person that she's been in my life and the life of many of my peers, as well as how she's been since I left law school and left Philadelphia and moved to New York and DC. She has always been someone, no matter how busy she is, she'll take a minute to get on the phone or set up some time for you to be able to stop by her office, and always returns your emails. I don't know how she keeps track of all those emails with so many people, I'm sure, that are emailing you, and so many students that are asking for your advice, but she always responds, which is amazing. I don't know how you keep track of it, but it means a lot to us. I can think of when I was trying to figure out what to do my third year of law school, Dean Epps was someone that I knew that I could always talk to and get great advice, and the great advice was I was able to then go clerk for the late Honorable Clifford Scott Green, which was an amazing experience. And even after that, going to the law firm and et cetera, she's just always been there. So I think it's a mix of her being that role model before you even knew you were a role model for me, and I'm sure many other students, not wanting to disappoint. So although you have your internal kind of push, having people out there that you also don't want to disappoint and do well for, and also her just always being available to help, has really helped to shape my career.
Thank you, very well said. Now, keeping in mind this is a Black History Month program on the surface, but it is also a deeper program in the term of the national conversation about that. So this next question is a general one for the panel, and it's this. We know that Black History Month is not a local celebration, it is a national observance. The predicate is, how are we as a nation faring when it comes to the education of our young people from a variety of fronts, about their culture, about advancing their dreams, about the ladders and the pathways that they would need to take to make it to where they're trying to get, like we talked about in your case. We've also heard it in Dean Epps' case, where she said that back then it was difficult for her because there weren't a lot of role models at that point in time for her. There were very few people in her class, but yet and still, there is a way that you find your way to go forward. So it's a general question to whoever will take it. How are we doing when it comes to reaching out to our young people and inspiring them to be more today? I'll start. Yes.
You know, I'm not sure how we're doing. I think one of the reasons that what happened in Ferguson was so shocking to lots of people, and the George Zimmerman thing in Florida, is that, I think that, there's been sort of a joke, kind of, that since President Obama was elected, that we live in a post-racial country, and I don't think that people of color believe that. But I also think that there's been enough accomplishment among African Americans that people wouldn't necessarily expect that something like Ferguson would happen. And once Ferguson happened, once the George Zimmerman thing happened, you started to hear more and more and more about incidents like that happening all over the country. And so I think that I think that young people, wrestle with how it's possible for President Obama to be elected. In Philadelphia, we have so many leaders who are African American, the mayor, the council president, the chief judge of the Third Circuit, the chief judge of the district court. I mean, we have many, many African American leaders, and yet we struggle in Philadelphia with issues of, racial intolerance in ordinary citizens' lives. And so I think that there was maybe for a little while, there was an expectation that you could somehow insulate yourself from that. If you accomplished enough, if you did, if you wore the right clothes and you did the right things and you got the right education and all of these things. And it's not necessarily enough, that we still have a lot of work to do to change attitudes. And I think that, the occasion of Black History Month maybe serves to remind us of all of the things all of the experiences that people before us had to endure to get to the place where we could accomplish these things and wear the right clothes and get the right education and have the right jobs so that we could be in positions to change attitudes. Because that really is ultimately what needs to happen, is that, that was the importance of integration, right? That people needed to be educated alongside other people and work alongside other people. And diversity is for everybody. It's not just for us to be able to achieve. It's also for people who don't look like us to understand that we are the same as they are. And that, I think, is one of the things that we need to continue to do, and an occasion like Black History Month should allow us to do.
Well, let me jump in here, because you said something critical here, and I'm looking for more feedback on this. You said, how do we change attitudes? What kind of role can you have in changing someone's attitude? Who wants to jump on that? And Judge, maybe this is perfect for you, because I'm sure the last time you looked in the mirror, you're still a Black man. Okay?
That was this morning, and that was
judge.
true. I was, as they said in Casablanca, I was shocked to find out that I was still a Black man. Now, I think the country has never, ever come to terms with its own history. I can't applaud and laud Senator Casey and his efforts enough in this kind of program. The tragedy of it is that it's necessary. The country will never reach its own fruition until history includes Black history. There's so much of American history is Black history. We're now talking about, again, states' rights. And I read a case the other night when the state Supreme Court was talking about the concept of federalism and the extent to which the Supremacy Clause could control the extent to which certain federal litigators could go into state court. I thought to myself, man, we fought that war in 1865 and you lost. You really need to get over it. But the country's never really come to grips with its history. And I'm not sure it's moving in that direction. It seems like every time there is a collective step forward, it's used almost like a shot of, as Malcolm X referred to, Novocaine, to dull the pain and blot the senses. When Alex Haley's wonderful film Roots was on television, I remember how everyone was talking about how we've now gotten past racism because the country as a country, and it was before everybody could go to the internet and do their own dropout thing, it's like Ed Sullivan, you're sitting there watching the same thing collectively. And there was a real feeling nationally that people now collectively had come to understand the history of slavery and had come to accept Black folks as equals. But that's just so far from the truth. And there's so many studies now, there's so much research on the role of subliminal bias. The current issue of Mother Jones magazine has the cover title is, "Are You a Racist?" The studies that Harvard has done, the current issue of National Affairs magazine has an entire issue devoted to racism, its subliminal ramifications, and the impact it still has on all of us, Black and white alike. We all are acculturated from the time we're born on certain kinds of associations that are not easy to overcome, and they're particularly hard to overcome because we don't allow ourselves to admit that they're there. And I go back to the Scheller Center, because I think that's one of the real promises of that center and Joanne's vision, to try to bring policy and education and litigation to try to sensitize folks. But I think we've done a miserable job. We're not aware of our history. We're still fighting in parts of this country over history books because they might mention something negative about the United States history. Well, get over that. every country has an awful lot of dirty linen, and we can't begin to get ourselves straight until we recognize it's there, start to examine what happened, what went wrong, and see whether or not, as the Supreme Court said in 1868, the badges and indicatives of slavery are still with us.
Okay, Bobby, you wanted to chime in.
Well, one, I do want to chime into what Judge McKee said on the importance of really educating about unconscious and implicit biases, which impact everyday interactions. If you saw the Nicholas Kristof article yesterday in the New York Times, he talked about looking at responses to want ads and the difference between if the respondent to the want ad had a white name or an African-American name. And if an African-American name was not called back like 50%, and a name like Jamal or Lakeisha was the experiment, and that having a white name was the equivalent of having 8 more years of work experience. So all of that, trying to educate about implicit bias, very important. If you think about the gains in education, though, and you think about what the role of lawyers has been to integrate schools, and now look at the latest reports that have talked about the drop in applications of minority and women law students. And when you take that in combination with the fact there are so few women and minority students in the pipeline, what does that mean when you already see the beginning of the pipeline, but that people aren't applying?
Sure. And Crystal, I want to move to you with the last part of this, because this is a political place that we're in right now. Washington is a political town. And when we talk about Black history, at the top of the food chain is our president, President Obama, your boss. Are there things you see on a daily basis? Because perhaps in your role within the White House, you may have a broader global view of things that happened in terms of how people act or react, still not just with the president, but in all aspects, on how they act and react on the matters of race, even still, even now, from where you see it. Can you speak to that?
I can speak. I think in general, one thing that we continue in terms of my work at the White House, but just in general our work, is making sure that we can create opportunities for all Americans. Thinking about, I mean, obviously race and those issues are out here in the public sphere, but trying to get past those issues, and I realize that you have to attack those issues first before you try to push back them. But thinking about making sure that we're creating opportunities for everyone. For example, the My Brother's Keeper initiative that I work on is trying to level the playing field and realizing that, you know, America is best when you have a full team. I think that is really kind of the thrust of it, bringing everyone, helping folks to overcome barriers to success, and recognizing that there is some historical impact to why things are the way they are and the statistics that we've all talked about, and really thinking about changing the narrative. That's one thing we've been working a lot on, and me personally with my colleagues, recognizing that we have these amazing opportunities. You know, often we have pinchable moments where I can't believe that I'm able to work on this issue, or I'm around the people that I'm around, or in the environment I'm around. So being able to share that story and make folks know that people of color and attorneys and other folks are interested in getting their story out and changing the narrative about what's out there about our youth.
Okay. We are just about ready for our audience participation, where I'm sure that you have questions or comments that you would like to pose to the panel, or just state in general. We do have a microphone. And if you will raise your hand where you are, we will get the microphone to you, and we would love to hear from you. And we'll do that now. Is that a hand I see in the back?
It's a hand. Hi.
Okay. So we're gonna.
It's also a body.
I could only see the hand over everyone. Please tell us who you are, and then state your question or comment, please.
I was going to tell you I'm Hillary Clinton, but I can't get away with that here. Okay. You're at the crossroads of the real issue as our country has faced since the very beginning because of slavery. And I'm going to bring the women into this too, because the ERA plays an important role in what we should be doing, and I will get to that in a moment. But the issue for having a country that was committed to slavery and then having a constitution that was able to accept an amendment to, quote, end it, it ended it legally. But the fact remains, we have always had, and this has nothing to do with race, it has to do with our system of economics and capitalism, which I applaud when it's being regulated. And the rest of the time, it's up to all of us to take a look at it, very strict scrutiny, which doesn't usually apply, but I'm applying it here. The judge will forgive me. We have 30 to 40% of our population at all times in the lower economic stratum. Now, if that's true, that certainly includes people of color, recent immigrants, people of any ethnic specificity who aren't from what I would call the white group. I'm obviously part of it. Last time I looked in the mirror, that. But that's something that's part of our country. And I want to only separate it for the purposes of race to let you know, in this lawyer's opinion, and this is where I get to the ERA in another minute, you need to concentrate on what Crystal's work is, and that is to change the status of all of the people in the country, slowly but surely. It'll take another 200 years before you can even reduce the population of the lowest economic group. Once you have accomplished that magic, you will see things change because more people of every type, derivation, origin, religion, etc., will start to move up in the economic stratum that you all mingle with, and I mingle with, and I want to mingle with, because I want to make more money. And that is the power of our system. And that's what's kept us to be the nation that we are. We're a very powerful nation. We're only 240 years old, somebody once told me. And is that true? Judge, I leave it to you to tell us if that's the... Hey, you didn't say anything. Okay, don't say anything
Wasn't
yet.
there when it was founded.
Oh, it wasn't. I thought you were sitting next to my father. I didn't know that. But when you, let me just bring it to the close with the women, because I think this is very important for all of us to understand. We have a constitution that does not include women in its constitution. Now, we are the greatest nation on earth, and we still haven't managed to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. You can appreciate that when you realize what happened with the 13th Amendment and how long that took. And look, we're still trying to fight all of the prejudice that came from our prior behavior and laws and regulations. Now, if women still aren't in the Constitution, and that includes African American women, all women, it has nothing to do with your race, it has to do with your gender. You are born female, and you're not in the Constitution as a female. Now, if you appreciate that and understand it, you will know how some women feel about not being part of the United States of America, but we've had the economic opportunity, for the most part, to get out of the lower echelon of income. Now, I didn't think this was an easy topic, and I don't think that you're going to accept it at face value, but I would like you to go and think about it, because it has a lot to do with the status of people and how we treat 52% of the population in the Constitution of the greatest nation on earth.
Well, you raise a good point. Is there a member of the panel that wants to speak to the issue of women's inequality?
Bobby's already touched on it, and then the money thing, I think you're right about what you're saying. The problem of getting there is, and it's the study that Bobby mentioned that was picked up by Christoph yesterday, there's still this attitude there that people don't even realize that they have in large part, which prevents that economic equality from happening. I don't know how we do it. I don't, and it takes some agitation, I think, too.
Well, Just last night, and pardon me, but thank you, because we do want to move around as much as we can and get more questions in. But just last night on the Oscars, for those of you watching, a big deal was made of the fact that, you know, women and equal pay, which may have been shocking to some people that this is 2015 and they're still having that discussion, but it received quite an ovation last night in the halls of the Oscars. So again, the floor is open to discussion on this matter, and then we'll get to the next question. Yes.
I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak, and I'm
Something
not a
in your
politician. But to dovetail on the economics, I had recently heard a statistic, and I don't know whether it's still true or not, but in the United States, I think African Americans make up about 12% of the total population. When you take the people that are homeless, African Americans represent over 40% of those that are homeless. And if you really break that down, that is a huge, when we're talking about in the bottom echelon, we're talking about the majority of the folks on the bottom echelon, if we are really truthful about it, are people of color. And to me, there's something inherently unfair when we live in the United States that's supposed to be a country of freedom and liberty for all. To me, that speaks to the fact that there are a segment of population that really doesn't have the same kind of freedoms and liberty that some of the other folks do. And I know that we live in a democracy in which, you know, there's capitalism and you're allowed to just progress and try to get very powerful and try to make a good living for yourself and everything. But I sometimes wonder if, you know, it hasn't flipped to the other side where the people in power have the power and have the connections and have the resources to keep themselves in power and to keep the other people down. And that we live in a society in which it's all about me, which is very different from what we're hearing tonight about, you know, our honoree. And that we should try to work on policies and develop kind of rules and things that kind of get us back to caring about the other person. Like, I love that, my brother's keeper. You know, what does that really say about how we're caring for each other? And if we could develop, you know, and go in that direction, I think it would go a whole long way to equalizing the playing field that is so unfair right now.
Well, let me just jump in here, just for the sake of discussion. There are many who might say that that is an admirable topic, but it's probably not one, and Senator, this may be an opportunity for you to get involved in this, but it's probably not one that elected officials are likely to take on, given that they're taking on other, what they would consider to be more pressing issues of whatever is happening in the administration and beyond. And so a feel-good issue about let's all kumbaya might not get any traction. But I don't live in Washington, Senator, and I don't know how things operate here. Am I off base with that in terms of issues that don't get the proper traction that perhaps they should?
Well, Art, first of all, I'd love to borrow your voice for a couple of minutes. Isn't that great? Isn't that great the way he presents things? But it's back to me, sorry. Kind of flat. No, but Art, you raise a good point. I'll be brief. Lately, there's been some cause for some hope, I think, in terms of how people approach some of these broader issues. The president raised the issue of income inequality, going back a couple of years, more intensively, I think, the last 2 years. And it's now a central issue on the Republican side of the presidential debate, to a certain extent, not where I want it to be. I would want it to be of a fever pitch in great intensity, but they're starting to talk about the minimum wage increase, which for a long period of time has been mostly on one side of the aisle. Now you hear Republican candidates speaking to it at least. Walmart just raised their minimum wage. I don't want to applaud that yet because it's not where I want it to be, but they're being forced now to confront these basic issues that get right at the question of poverty, economic equality, and a whole range of other issues. So, look, we have to keep raising them and creating the intensity. I think the president's done a good job of doing just that. So I think there's some reason for optimism, even as we know that things tend to be here stalled because of the partisan divide. But I think I think the fact that income inequality and the economic issues like wages are finally becoming major issues. And we just had, and I just say this broadly for the state, we just had an election for governor where the central issue was not the individual or something else. It was a single issue, for the most part, a single issue campaign about one word, education, when we needed it to be just that kind of a debate. In my lifetime, I've never seen an election for that office be so dominated by one major issue of such great consequence to the Commonwealth and, of course, to the country. So both of those national and state scenarios give me a little hope.
All right, Senator, thank you. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I appreciate you giving us some insight on that. We're going to have one more question here, and we're almost getting to the point where we're going to be able to hear from our honoree. And so let's move on to this question. It's not on.
Same.
Sorry, Mr. Schiller. Whether you know it or not, that's better.
Yeah.
Joanne is a risk taker, and I don't know that she realizes it. Let me tell you a little story about the Scheller Center and I thank you all for, and particularly Judge McKay, whose career I've been following and is one of the people I most respect in this city of Philadelphia, not Washington. But what Joanne did with the Scheller Center, now I didn't know Joanne that well, but she apparently was somewhat familiar with some of the things that I had been doing in the past. One of the things that I was well known for, I think, was suing Temple. Yeah. In fact, I did it twice. Temple, in fact, Bobby may remember the maids versus Temple University, because they were paid several cents per hour less than the janitors. In those days, this is way back, before class actions were heard about, I think. And it was very unfair. The only difference between the maids and the janitors as far as their work is they worked harder. But they were not given equal pay. And I represented the union at that time that represented them, and I said, I was going to sue Temple, and I did. And ultimately, that may have been one of the first cases of a class action based on sex discrimination and obtaining equal pay. I don't really know, but I think Joanne probably knows better than I do from the law background of that case. And then another case occurred with Temple. They had the very large Department of Social Work, and they had a woman, a very fine woman. Her name was Zelda Samoff, and her husband was the regional director of the National Labor Relations Board over here in Philadelphia. But she was paid, and even though she was chairperson, and they called her chairman, she didn't really like that in those days, of the largest, or one of the very largest departments at Temple, but she was not paid equivalent to the pay of other department chairpersons at Temple. You know why? She didn't have a PhD. Well, guess what? In social work in those days, they didn't have PhDs. So I sued Temple. Her husband talked me into it, who knew me from the NLRB days, and I was a bit of a radical, as Joanne obviously knew, and got her equal pay. In fact, I had to pay her for quite a bit in the back. And I think there are PhDs now in social work, but Joanne knew that background, and she operates very quietly and very focused. In fact, so she decided to invite me to give the Ross Lecture one year at Temple. And she heard some more about it, and Judge McKay may remember the days of Cecil Moore and the 1967 student effort to get black African-American courses, we had a big problem here in Philadelphia, and those were the days of the police commissioner was Rizzo at those days, and I had to end up in court on that as well. So Joanne quietly knew that background, and she focused on it. And that's what Joanne does. She's able to pick what is important, what is necessary, and that's why Sandy and I decided that Temple was the place for really advancing efforts at improving things for our citizens and social justice. And that, you probably don't realize how focused you are and how you accomplish very quietly those things. In fact, I even had her read a book that I just finished writing, and I think I scared her when she read it. But I just wanted to congratulate you on this day. You deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that is, you can just hand it over. That is the perfect segue for where we are in this program and for the members of the panel here. Thank you for your insight and your involvement. Could we please? Now, I'm going to ask a favor. We are here to celebrate a woman of integrity, of great vision, of compassion, a leader in our community and our educational institution, a person who we all love, respect, and admire. I'm going to ask that you stand on your feet as we congratulate our honoree, Dean Joanne Epps.
Senator Casey, thank you so much for a day that I could never have imagined and certainly will never forget. And Cheryl Bullock and Michelle Hamowitz, the two people with whom we have been working over these last weeks to make this day real. Thank you very much. I know that my presence here, Cheryl, is in large part to your suggestion, and I'm really grateful to you for that. Ted, Shelley, Art, my sister Bobby, Crystal, thank you all very much for agreeing to participate in this panel, for giving of your time, for giving of your thoughts, for sharing with some people here who don't know all of the things about me, some of the things that you do. I really appreciate your being here and your participation. I want to thank my Temple family. There are so many of you who are here, my peeps, my A-team, and so many of my colleagues around the university. I am really grateful. I have friends here who come from so many different walks of my life, a lot from the ABA section of litigation, which Bobby mentioned, and friends who've actually flown here, which I'm still sort of astonished by. And my good buds from Philadelphia, I'm not calling any of you out by name so that I don't skip anybody, but you're seeing my eyes. You know that I know you're here, and I am really grateful. And of course, I have to thank my husband. When you have the life that I have and the work that I do, you know that you need somebody at home who is caring and loving and cheering, and I think the senator used the word supportive, or maybe it was President Theobald, that I couldn't do this, Jay, without you, and I am really happy to have the opportunity in this room, in the presence of so many important people in my life, to thank you very much for your love and your support. And we've been married 20, I should have counted that, maybe about 6. Yeah, let's go with 26. 26 years, but it's been really remarkable, and I thank you so much for being a part of my life. And of course, And of course, my family, who came from out of town to be with me here. I thank all of you so much. I'm not going to go any further down the family route because then I won't be able to finish. But you know what I was thinking. President Theobald, Shiona, thank you so much for your comments, for your support. I do have to tell you, the reason I left Philadelphia, because if you're thinking about this, President Theobald did go to Trinity, not at the same years that I did, but he left to go to what really was a wonderful school. But you might remember this. So you're thinking about college, and you're trying to think about what life might be like. You're leaving home, for me, for the very first time, because I grew up poor. I didn't have the chance to go away to camp. I'd spent the night at my cousin's house a lot, one of whom is here. That was about as far as I went. So going away to college was really scary, but of course I'm thinking, so I need to be far enough so Dad doesn't just drop in. And Mom was working at Temple, so that made Temple not a starter. So it had nothing to do with any feelings about Temple. I just needed to be somewhere else. But as you did mention, my first job was at the Temple bookstore, and at the end of this academic year, I will finish 30 years at Temple. This has been a bigger part of my life than any other place I've been or worked. So I wore my owl today. I have my Temple owl on my lapel. Temple is in my heart, and always will be. So I just have two other things that I want to say, and then I'll probably sit down and think about the three I forgot. But actually, there's three things I want to say. First off, I feel like I really have to do something remarkable this week, because this feels very much like I've just listened to my eulogy. And so I'm really hoping, see, if I do something really remarkable, then it would have to be edited. So I'm going to hope to live at least through Friday and do something that would have to be added so that this didn't actually turn out to be my eulogy. The second thing that I want to say is that I do feel an enormous obligation to people coming behind me. And I feel that despite all that we have accomplished in this country, we have so much more to do. And the Schellers who are here with me today are one of the group of people who I look to help us make achievements in life for people who didn't have a great break. There are so many people today, they don't get the right education, they don't have the right opportunities, their parents aren't necessarily mentoring or nurturing, and I keep thinking they could hold the cure for cancer if we could just give them the opportunities that I was lucky enough to have, but which I feel we don't give out quite as readily or as plentifully as I think this nation should. So I feel like it's my job to do just a little bit to help people who I have a chance to touch, to maybe encourage them to do something with their life for people coming behind them. And so that brings me to my very last point, which is that although it was really weird to listen to all of the accolades today, I'm thinking to myself, that's not my life. I didn't do all those things, but maybe I did. But I very much feel like I have done so little in terms of what I should have done, maybe in the 10% range. But a day like this just reminds me that I'm going to keep trying as I go forward. Thank you all very much.
Well, Dean, thank you very much. I'm going to wrap up. I wanted to provide a couple of thank yous before we conclude. First of all, Art, thank you for doing this. You did a great job. Let's hear it for Art. And Crystal and Bobby, thank you very much. Shelley and Judge McKee, we're grateful for your presence here, your ability to not just talk about the Dean's contributions, but also making that part of the fabric of some other things we have to do here in Washington, reminding me about some unfinished business that we have. But we're grateful for your presence. And I was struck by a lot of things that were said, and I heard all of the discussion. I was back just as the discussion was starting. But I wanted to note in particular, Crystal, your recollection of walking into class and walking out of class and not wanting to disappoint the dean. That was a very moving story, and I hope any of us would hope that someone that we've had contact with in our life, as even not as a mentor, but as someone who has gone ahead, in this case, her going ahead of you, we would hope that someone would say that about us, and I'm really grateful that you share that with us. Because, Dean, when I was reading and going through your biography and looking at the remarks today, which were prepared for me about your whole life, I was really struck by that towards the end of my remarks, how you viewed your role and how you saw yourself when you said, "I spent much of my career not seeing ahead of me someone who was at all times like me. I've had to make my way without that. I want to be a resource for young people entering the profession that I never had." I think it's plainly evident today for those who know the Dean, but for those of you who are learning more about her life today, Dean, you've been more than a resource for those young people. You've been a treasure and a deep reservoir of inspiration, just like you heard from Crystal, and we're happy that we're here to witness that today. I wanted to, as well, thank our staff. I want to make sure people saw the ones who were individuals we referenced before. Cheryl Bullock, everyone knows over here. Cheryl, thank you. Sam Kashkarian. Sam is here, or was here. She did a lot of the preparation work for the remarks on the floor and some others. Michelle Hamowitz. Make sure everyone sees Michelle. Michelle, you did great work. This is a lot of preparation, and we're grateful for that. Everyone, I think, knows Jim Brown in the back, our Chief of Staff. And I may have missed it when I was out voting, but Sandra Myers, where's Sandra? Right in the middle. Sandra, stand up. Way back in 2007, Jim and Sandra came together and conspired, to use a legal term, in a very good way to make sure that we had this program, and I'm really grateful for them doing that all those years ago. So, Dean, I have, other than, and I'll do this first and then I'll do the second thing after that, we have food here. We have this room till 2 a.m. No, we have it till, we have it till about whenever. This room, by the way, and I should have said this at the beginning, this room is full of history, remarkable history. Some of it displayed on that, on the back, and some of you already know this, and if you do, I hate to repeat it, but it's so important to announce or to recite this. This room is the Kennedy Caucus Room, so named not until Senator Edward M. Kennedy passed away. His office is right on this corridor, right out 2 doors onto the corridor. I don't know how many years he was on this corridor, but he's in this building, I think, his whole time in the Senate. Both his brothers, John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, announced their presidential campaigns in this room. The Watergate hearing was here. The Iran-Contra hearing. Of lesser renown and fame was the Health, Education, Labor, Pensions, Healthcare hearing in 2009. I know you watched. But I turned to a colleague, I won't say who, just so they don't want to be in this reference. I said, this is a big deal. We're working on healthcare here. It feels, you know, it's kind of historic. And he said to me, sure doesn't feel like it. So the Titanic hearing was here. I don't think anyone was here for that. The building opened in 1909, and the tragedy of the Titanic was 1912, so it happened not long after the building opened. But a lot of history here of great consequence and of great significance to the nation, and not necessarily warm and fuzzy and hugging. A lot of conflict and accountability. Someone mentioned that word several times before. So, Dean, it's entirely appropriate that this tribute to you and to Black History Month was held in this historic room, and that means I should give you a gift, I think. That, of course, it's a very nice gift. I'd like to be able to say that I walked to the place and I bought it and I picked it up. That didn't happen. I had a lot of help. But I know it's a nice gift. And if you'd approach the bench? No. The podium. It reads United States Senate on almost every side, so you won't forget where you were. Dean, congratulations. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
That's it. That's it. Good job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.